Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, I want to dig into the mailbag. I love it when email questions come in. Here's a good one. James asked how to replace your income with the business in the 1 to 2 year time frame. So James owns a subscription tea company. It's a great looking website. He has a 9-to-5 job, but it's a consumer tea subscription business profitable. He writes, I have many ideas for creating experiences that allow people to experience time together in different ways, but my concern is that I lack follow-through. At this particular consumer tea brand, we're doing $150 a month in sales. So we got that first dollar online, but still obviously not enough to quit a job. For everybody listening to the show that runs a business, we've all been at $150 of income a month from our business. So the first thing is, James, you have taken the most important step. You're already ahead of 90% of people who dream of making some money online. You've done it. Okay. So now we got to figure out what the next step is. So James writes, I have enjoyed listening to TMBA. Appreciate your email. Subscribe to the email list. Appreciate that. I am a big consumer of business-focused material. I wanted to take you up on your invite to share what I'm working through. I've started several side businesses over the years, but honestly, finishing has always been the harder part. I get excited, I make progress, then I lose steam or shift focus before anything fully takes shape. Lately, I've been thinking about how to break that cycle, but even working on just one idea for a time is proving challenging. Curious if you've come across any habits, mental models, or frameworks that have helped founders get better at follow-through. Okay, so I want to get into the specifics of your particular situation with the $150 a month and how we might think about that. But first, I'll take a stab at the framework thing. I wrote a little graph on my thing. I was thinking through this morning before I turned on the camera, just all of the ideas that I screwed around with online before I even considered it screwing around online, if that makes sense. Like I had all these domains and websites. I wrote a travel guide one time and I sold it to one guy for $30. Turns out he was like the #1 travel guide producer. He was just like scoping out the competition. And I was like, this is such a bad idea. Like there's no differentiation here. And so then I just moved on to the next thing and moved on to the next thing. And it took a long time to even get close to the first thing that was a thing. So what's the model here? I think starting out with a bunch of different ideas, and I'm not talking about maybe just 10. I'm talking about, let's get it to 100. Isn't bad at all. In fact, I was speaking with an advanced entrepreneur, and by advanced, I mean they don't need to be an entrepreneur anymore. And he's starting a new business. And he mentioned to me that there were over 100 ideas on the whiteboard that they were screwing around with, testing, writing out the different positives and negatives. Then when you boil it down to like 3 or 4 or 5 ideas, then all of a sudden we're mocking up a P&L. Like, well, what would this thing look like? Like, what are the costs associated with getting customers, and how much would it cost to deliver this product, and does it look good over time, and all that. So we start to boil it down from a bunch of ideas. So maybe it's the case that you're still in this ideas moment of the entrepreneurial process. It's like you're just putting sticks in the fire and seeing which one lights up. And what I'm hearing from you is that none of them have lit up yet. And that's how it works. And so that's why I love your question, is because it's representative of the frustration that so many of us feel before the stories even get to business podcasts like this. And there is this boulevard of broken dreams of 100 domain names and all these weird websites that went up and stuff we forgot about now, but that most of us have in our past. And so that's just part of the process. Now, the ideas thread keeps going, because what happens when you stick enough sticks in the fire and you realize, oh, that stick, is the wrong type of wood. The idea is that put a bunch of sticks in this damn fire and eventually one lights up. And that is the moment for execution. So in other words, maybe the challenge you think you're facing, which is one of execution and focus, you haven't quite arrived at yet. Because typically the indication of lighting up is going to be some kind of money from the marketplace that is meaningful to you, or some kind of distribution momentum. Like, wow, people love it when I put this kind of thing onto the web. And you're seeing buying intent there. If you're not seeing that, maybe we're not on fire yet. And that's cool. I would say just keep generating ideas. Stick with your strength. So maybe we don't have enough ideas. Have you tried 100? Now, the next step of this primordial entrepreneurial framework, money comes along at some point. It's the feeling of a tailwind. It's like, wow, I put this in front of people and they just ask me questions about it, and they ask me how they can get access to it, or they want to be a part of it. Okay, now we got an idea that has some momentum. This is really where the execution phase comes in. And for bootstrapping, we're going to want money to show up sooner rather than later. Typically, especially for our first venture, we're going to want like a good cash flow profile, so we don't have to wait for months or years to get paid, and that it's enough profit that we can actually put our energy and time into the business. So I'll get to the details of that in a minute. But here's where ideas come back, is that, well, now you're the guy who's had 100 ideas, and you've got one that's really taking off. If you continue to execute on an ideas-based philosophy, this is where focus and ideas become a problem. And certainly Ian and I have fallen victim to this many times, where instead of having an idea for our business, which I've started to think of as business systems. So you have like one good idea that takes fire. You backfill that idea with great business systems, which are just tried and true business ideas. Like, let's not reinvent the wheel about how team members work at this company. Let's not reinvent the wheel about how we market the company. Let's just execute really well. Well, if you're used to having new business ideas every week, it's really easy to say, well, now I'm facing some challenges with this business, and wouldn't it be cool if I just started another one? And so that's where I think this challenge of focus and execution come in, not necessarily at the phase that you've indicated in your question, or it might be the case that you just need new ideas. Because here's the magic thing. There's a classic Venn diagram that I've seen with a bunch of different formulations, but it has 3 parts. It's like, what do I do well? What's my skill set? What do I want to do? And then what can we get paid to do? And if you can find the overlap between those 3 things, that's the sort of sweet spot. Now, the undervalued thing here, and why we have to generate so many ideas or sticks, is that figuring out what other people value at the nexus of what you want to do, what you're willing to do, and what you're genuinely good at, that's the tricky part. But it's also the part that gives you the fuel to do it. So this is where people really warn people against passion projects or turning their passions into a business. I think another way to say what they're saying is you need to figure out what the world values and how your skills and willingness to work overlaps with those things. You don't need to do that. But if we're following the Venn diagram, that's the punchline here. There's some pitfalls in the Venn diagram, which is it's often hard to understand what we really are willing to do for a market until the market responds. One kind of warning I would have about that is it's easy to love a product that people love, that people are getting value from. So it helps to have an expansive idea of what we could be passionate about if we discovered it. So sometimes we just sort of default to what's ready at hand, what we consume a lot of, versus looking outward and saying, well, what do other people want? What can I find that the marketplace would enjoy? Now, back to your original thing, James, which is, I want to re-quote you here. I have many ideas for creating experiences that allow people to experience time together in different ways. Okay. Let's stop there. Let's not even worry about your follow through or your dedication and focus. I would just shelve that for a minute and let's generate a bunch of ideas for bringing people together that pays a lot better than currently that the tea packages are essentially, there's not a lot of margin there. So I would consider a consumer products business. Typically, you'd want to have an advanced either entrepreneurial skill set or knowledge of the market or knowledge of a distribution channel. Because if you put the tea business onto a spreadsheet and start to do the math, you're dealing with consumers. They're going to churn fast. There's not a ton of margin every month for you. So you need a huge volume of customers. Well, how are you going to find them? How much is it going to cost to acquire them? Typically, consumers are going to be more difficult than B2B or even prosumers. So what I would encourage you to do here is hang out at the nexus of what you're skilled at. If you're skilled at bringing people together, it's like, well, who really values getting together? And can you start to put together conceptions of experiences people could have that would be really unique and that there would be margin in it for you right away? So in my case, I would start to inventory the experiences that I found really special and maybe why they're a little bit difficult to find, but there's a market for it. There's a growing market for it and a lot of hungry people out there. So what I would think about is my mind just instantly goes to like cycling and golf, for example. There's obviously a big market out there for that. I would look at what are the parts of the market that are trending or growing or that I have a unique insight into it, could do things a little bit differently. If you could get 10 or 15 people to sign up for a multi-$1,000 trip, you could make more than $1,000 off of each customer, and you're in business the first month, the first trip. The interesting thing about an idea like that is like, well, you might only need to like get your deal in front of like 1,000 people or have like 100 conversations to get like 5 or 15 people who would be willing to buy into a product or experience like that. And as you grow the brand over the first 1 to 2 years, you're not only like making a living, but you can look at products that might be, not as high of a price point that you could then distribute into that clientele. So an example of this would be what GFNY did with high-end sportives. So charging way more than anybody else, but they're providing a unique experience in the sense that they're bringing the European sportif to an American clientele. They're closing the roads. They're turning it into a race. And now they have an apparel business, right? So they're able to sell like consumer products into that enormous audience that they built through higher ticket at the beginning. And I'm seeing good things here. I'm seeing that you have a passion for a type of product that you can charge a lot for. And I guess like I can end it with this, James. Like I'm not saying that, this is the way or whatever, but I'm saying that you got to experiment with it. Look at the numbers, do the math, and understand like how much easier it will be to get through that first 1,000 days. If you've got 15 people paying multiple thousands of dollars to fly somewhere, you will have to deliver for them. Like it's not a question of focus or execution. You're on the hook now because you're doing business. They gave you money and they expect something from you. You made a promise and you will deliver on it. And that's how businesses get momentum. Now, if you have specialized knowledge or expertise about marketing or distribution channel or type of product, that's a different thing. In general, I'm going to say, if you don't have that specialized knowledge, I'm looking higher ticket, I'm looking like high-end consumers, or I'm looking B2B. And I want that first few months of deals to put me in business. We told examples of back in the day, we started with e-commerce, right? Yeah, but our product was $800. We ordered a container of our product at the beginning. And we did have SEO and stuff, but we were on the phone talking with clients and we knew that we would get that container money back within the first few months. So I think having that financial logic right out of the gate would be the way to go, especially for your first business. So I think sometimes we overcomplicate things by trying to build a business. And if you're consuming a lot of business content, it's endless, right? Like there's endless of like all the elements that make up a business, but it all starts with simply making money. And so I will put yourself on the hook for that. Like, let's come up with some business ideas that you can make money within 30, 60, 90 days. Not that relies on all this business apparatus of distribution and scale and product development and all these kinds of things. And with the caveat, if you know about that stuff, then you know, and then you can model it out and do it. But a product like this, where it's like, hey, we're all going to this world-class cycling location. It's $4,500, and it's unique because there's going to be this person there. It's unique because we're going to have this take on it. That's something you can go out and sell today, make a margin on, deliver the product, and get it rolling. So keep coming with the ideas. I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. In other words, you might be doing the right thing, but your idea isn't supporting you. And so we need a new idea. And we'll worry about the execution when we get an idea that has some momentum. The final piece, I get you, man. Starting new businesses is fun. Like, keep starting new businesses. Keep going. And the moment of truth will come when there's better market feedback. You might say, okay, Dan said come up with a high-end cycling thing, or I don't like cycling. Okay, then you kind of go through the ideas and you're like, man, there's this tea house that for some reason nobody visits, but they don't know the story. And, they don't have anybody to hang out with when they get there. So you call the tea house, you figure out when they're free, you pull together a thing, you rope together all your knowledge of this. There's a farm there, all this stuff. And you figure out something, you go to somebody and say, $4,500, we're not going to pay $4,500 to go to a tea thing. It's like, well, thanks for the conversation. What would you pay for? You love tea. Like, how do you spend money on this hobby? And, maybe you find out that tea people don't spend money at all. And it's like, okay, well, how can I bring people together around something else and then serve them tea? Because I'm passionate about it, right? That's a unique way in which you do it. But now I got to figure out what's happening. What do people really care about? And how can I deliver that experience? Cool. So I think that's a very fruitful way to go. If you're willing to create experiences for people, the way to do this at scale is to do it in person and to understand these customers really well. Like, what are you guys buying? Like, what challenges do you have? Like, what are you going to do next? And if you have this focus group of your first, 15, 30, 50 customers, they're going to give you the ideas that could potentially scale out to thousands. And that's typically how bootstrapping works. So good luck, James.